What if the food you eat every morning believing it's healthy is quietly pushing your blood pressure up, more than salt ever could? I'm Dr. Mandy Thomas. Today, I'm telling you something most doctors never explain to their senior patients. For millions of people, sugar is a more powerful driver of high blood pressure than sodium. And the most dangerous thing about it is how well it hides in foods marketed as heart-healthy, low-fat, and good for you. Drop a comment right now. Have you been watching your salt carefully and still not seeing the results you expected? First, the truth about salt sensitivity. Salt does raise blood pressure. The science is real, but here's what almost nobody explains. Sodium doesn't raise blood pressure equally in everyone. Research shows that roughly 60% of people with hypertension are salt sensitive. Their bodies respond strongly to sodium changes. But that leaves 40% for whom reducing salt produces very modest results, maybe 3 to 5 points, sometimes nothing at all. So what's happening to those people? They're restricting an entire food category, eating joyless food every day, being told they must not be trying hard enough. And the whole time, the real driver of their hypertension is sitting right on their breakfast table, invisible and unchallenged. That driver is sugar. And I want to show you exactly how it works. Meet Barbara. Barbara was 71, a retired school teacher, and one of the most dedicated patients I've ever encountered. When her doctor told her blood pressure was dangerously elevated, she attacked the problem completely. She threw out her salt shaker, bought low-sodium versions of everything, read every nutrition label, stopped dining out entirely. She stayed consistently under 1,500 milligrams of sodium per day. By any measure, she was following the guidelines perfectly. 3 years later, her blood pressure was still 152/94. Her doctor had added a second medication. She felt frustrated and was beginning to lose hope. When Barbara came to see me, I didn't review her sodium intake. I asked her to write down everything she ate and drank for 1 full week. When she brought me that food diary, I saw immediately what her previous doctors had missed. Barbara's breakfasts looked picture-perfect healthy. Orange juice, oatmeal with honey and banana, a light-flavored yogurt. Afternoons, a granola bar, some crackers with a spread. Evenings, lean protein and vegetables with ketchup or barbecue sauce. To Barbara, this was a clean diet. Low sodium, high in good intentions, completely free of obvious junk food. But Barbara was consuming between 18 and 22 teaspoons of added sugar every single day. That light yogurt alone contained 4 to 5 teaspoons per serving. The orange juice carried nearly the same fructose load as a can of soda. The granola bar, the honey, the ketchup, the barbecue sauce, accumulating with every meal, every day. And that sugar was doing something to her arteries that no amount of salt restriction was ever going to fix. Here's how sugar actually raises blood pressure. 3 pathways. Once you understand this mechanism, you will never look at a so-called healthy food the same way again. When you eat added sugar, particularly fructose, which makes up half of table sugar and is the primary component of high fructose corn syrup, your liver handles it very differently from other carbohydrates. Most carbohydrates are processed throughout your muscles and tissues. Fructose is metabolized almost entirely in the liver, triggering a cascade that hits blood pressure through 3 different pathways simultaneously. Pathway 1. Uric acid blocks nitric oxide. When your liver processes fructose, one byproduct is uric acid. Most people associate uric acid with gout. But uric acid also directly blocks the production of nitric oxide inside your blood vessel walls. Nitric oxide is your body's built-in blood pressure regulator. It signals your arteries to relax and widen, keeping blood moving freely. When fructose-driven uric acid suppresses nitric oxide, your vessels constrict and stiffen. Blood pushes harder through narrower channels. Your heart works harder. Blood pressure climbs, not because of salt, but because your most powerful natural pressure control mechanism has been switched off. Pathway 2, insulin resistance causes sodium retention. Consistent high sugar intake leads your cells to stop responding properly to insulin. Your pancreas produces more and more of it to compensate. And here's what almost nobody tells patients. Elevated insulin causes your kidneys to retain sodium and water. The higher your insulin, the more sodium stays trapped in your body. Here's the brutal irony. You restrict salt, you do everything correctly, but if your insulin is chronically elevated from sugar consumption, your kidneys are holding on to whatever sodium you eat anyway. The sugar is making you salt sensitive even when you're already restricting salt. You're fighting a sodium battle while sugar is dismantling your defenses from behind. Pathway 3. Fructose amplifies sodium absorption. Fructose directly activates sodium transporters in your kidneys and intestines, instructing your body to absorb more sodium from everything you consume. High sugar intake doesn't just raise blood pressure through its own mechanism, it amplifies the effect of every gram of salt you eat. Research in older adults has found that higher sugar intake is associated with raising systolic blood pressure by over 7 points and diastolic by more than 6. Compare that to a standard low-salt diet, which typically produces a 3 to 5 point reduction. We have been fighting with one hand while being hit with two. Now I want to pause here. If you're over 60 and want clear, science-based cardiovascular information every week, hit subscribe right now and turn on notifications. And share this today with a senior you care about who has been watching their salt for years without results. Now, the hidden sugars that are doing the most damage. The sugar that does the most damage to blood pressure isn't usually coming from foods that taste like dessert. It's hiding in foods our culture has labeled healthy. A tablespoon of ketchup contains roughly 1 teaspoon of sugar, and most people use 3 or 4 at a meal. A serving of jarred pasta sauce can contain 4 to 6 teaspoons per cup. Barbecue sauce delivers 2 full teaspoons per tablespoon in some brands. Flavored low-fat yogurt, marketed for decades as heart-healthy, can contain 5 to 6 teaspoons of added sugar in a single serving container. Breakfast cereals, granola bars, low-fat salad dressings, multi-grain bread. These are the foods seniors eat while believing they're protecting themselves. Meet Robert. Robert was 69, a retired electrician, and had followed his doctor's sodium advice seriously for 4 years. He never touched a salt shaker, avoided processed meats, canned soups, and salty snacks. From a sodium perspective, he was genuinely doing well. But Robert drank sweet tea the way most people drink water. 4, sometimes 5 large glasses every day, made the old-fashioned way, a full cup of sugar per gallon. Each glass contained 3 to 4 teaspoons of sugar. He was consuming up to 20 teaspoons of added sugar daily through sweet tea alone and had never once thought of it as sugar. It was just refreshment. Tradition. Nothing to do with his heart. I asked Robert one simple question. What would happen if we replaced the sweet tea with plain unsweetened tea for 30 days and kept everything else exactly the same? He was skeptical. He tried it anyway. 22 days later, he called my office. His home reading was 134/82, 24 points lower from one single change. We didn't touch his medication. We didn't alter anything else. We didn't even discuss salt. One source of daily hidden sugar removed, and his blood pressure responded in a way that years of sodium restriction had never come close to achieving. 2 more hidden drivers most doctors never mention. The first is sleep. One of my patients, 74 years old, consistently worst readings in the morning, 162/97 upon waking, had chronic insomnia averaging 5 hours per night. She had accepted this as simply part of aging. Nobody had ever connected it to her blood pressure. Here's what was happening every night. When you sleep fewer than 7 hours, your body increases stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. These constrict blood vessels, raise heart rate, and signal the kidneys to retain sodium. Under normal sleep, blood pressure dips 10 to 20% overnight, a critical recovery window for your heart and arteries. She was losing that dip entirely. Her cardiovascular system was waking up already exhausted and carrying that strain into every day. We worked on consistent sleep habits. No screens in the evening, no caffeine after noon, a cool, dark room, a simple relaxation routine. Over 6 weeks, her sleep climbed to 6.5 hours. Her morning blood pressure dropped nearly 23 points without changing a single medication. The second hidden driver is loneliness. I had a patient, 67, 2 years after losing his wife of 41 years, who ate well, exercised 3 days a week, and monitored sodium carefully. Blood pressure was 161/99, and nothing was moving it. He was eating alone, watching television alone, and speaking to his son by phone once a week. Chronic loneliness triggers a sustained low-grade stress response. Your body interprets the absence of social connection as a survival threat and responds by elevating cortisol, increasing vascular inflammation, and stiffening arterial walls. This is not emotional advice dressed up as medicine. It is measurable physiology. Addressing isolation has genuine cardiovascular consequences. And potassium, the missing half of the equation. Potassium helps blood vessel walls stay flexible and relaxed. It also signals your kidneys to excrete excess sodium. Without adequate potassium, the pressure-raising effects of sodium are amplified. The ratio between sodium and potassium has actually been shown to be more strongly associated with blood pressure outcomes than either mineral measured alone. Seniors are especially vulnerable here. Fresh vegetables become harder to prepare. Fruits get avoided over sugar concerns. Legumes cause digestive discomfort. Many seniors diligently watching sodium are simultaneously, inadvertently, depleting the mineral that is supposed to protect them. One of my patients rebuilt her potassium through cooked spinach, sweet potatoes, white beans, avocado, and small amounts of plain yogurt. Her blood pressure dropped to 132/82 within 8 weeks. Not by cutting more sodium, by giving her body the mineral partner that makes sodium management actually work. Your action plan, starting today. 1. Do a sugar audit for 7 days. Write down everything you eat and drink, look up the added sugar content, and count it in teaspoons. 4 grams on a nutrition label equals 1 teaspoon. Identify your top 2 or 3 sources and eliminate or dramatically reduce them. 2. Target liquid sugars first. Sweet tea, fruit juice, flavored coffee drinks, sports drinks, vitamin waters. These are the most potent sources, absorbed rapidly, triggering the fructose cascade almost immediately. Replacing just 2 sweetened drinks per day with water or plain unsweetened tea can produce measurable improvement within 30 days. 3. Hunt hidden sugars in supposedly healthy foods. Check condiments, yogurts, sauces, cereals, granola bars. Buy plain yogurt and add fresh fruit. Look for condiment brands with 0 added sugar. Check nutrition labels specifically for added sugars. This now appears as a separate line thanks to updated labeling requirements. 4. Take sleep seriously as a cardiovascular priority. Aim for 7 to 8 hours. Consistent bedtime, no screens in the evening, no afternoon caffeine, cool and dark room. 5. Address social connection with the same seriousness you bring to diet. If meaningful in-person conversation has become rare, treat that as the medical risk factor it actually is. Join one group. Commit to one weekly connection. 6. Build potassium into every meal deliberately. Cooked spinach, sweet potato, avocado, white beans, lentils. You don't need to count milligrams. Just make potassium-rich foods a consistent presence the same way you currently avoid sodium. 7. Bring all of this to your doctor. Your doctor can only address what they know about your life. If they don't know you're consuming 20 teaspoons of daily sugar from foods labeled healthy or averaging 5 hours of sleep, they cannot help you address those factors. You have to bring your full life into the room. Barbara made 3 changes. She replaced flavored yogurt with plain yogurt and fresh berries. She swapped her daily orange juice for water and whole fruit. She removed the sweetened condiments. We changed nothing else. No new medications, no further sodium restriction. 6 weeks later, her blood pressure was 131/82. For the first time in 3 years, her numbers were in a range we were both comfortable with. She looked at me and said something I'll never forget. All those years avoiding salt, I never once thought to look at the sugar. That is exactly why I made this video today. Salt is not your only enemy. And for many seniors, it may not even be the most powerful one. You deserve to understand the complete picture. Now you know about fructose, uric acid, and nitric oxide, about insulin and sodium retention, about the hidden sugars in foods masquerading as healthy choices, about sleep, loneliness, and potassium. This is real, clinically supported, actionable information, and it starts today. I've put together a free hidden sugar guide, a one-page printable with the top hidden sugar sources, the 7-day audit method, and the potassium-rich foods to add to your plate. The link is in the description, originally created for my clinic patients and available here for now. Drop a comment below. Which of these hidden drivers surprised you most? The sugar pathways, the sleep connection, or the potassium piece? I read everyone. Subscribe if you haven't. Share this with a senior you care about who has been watching their salt religiously and still can't get their numbers where they need to be. They might be one piece of missing information away from a real breakthrough. Next video, the 3 foods that have the strongest evidence for lowering blood pressure naturally, including one that most seniors already have in their kitchen. I'll see you there. This video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Never stop or adjust blood pressure medication without consulting your healthcare provider first.